Right, getting that handle in place is so important. It can be like you're just falling down a dark well with no bottom and no hope. And I want you to grab that handle. This was not my fault. But that handle is not enough. Jesus, through the gospel, intends to do more than just lift blame from you. He intends to lift shame from you. All right, like everything else in the book of Esther, like everything in the book, we've talked about this. The story of this assault is given to us very matter-of-factly. Did you notice that when Pastor Dan was reading? Very little commentary here. We don't get any insight into how Esther felt about that night. None at all. We don't even hear from any of the other women who were not only sexually assaulted, but then just thrown into slavery, into this harem to perform sexually at the king's whim. We don't hear from any of these young girls who lost their virginity to this man. It's not the way that this book is written. But there is an older covenant text, another one, about a sexual assault like this that is told from the woman's point of view. And I think that it beautifully gets at what every woman or man feels like when they are violated sexually like this. It's the story of another young, beautiful virgin. Her name was not Hadassah. Her name was Tamar. In the biblical book of 2 Samuel, we read about how Tamar was raped by her half-brother, Amnon. Amnon was a wicked man who just became obsessed with having sex with his beautiful half-sister. All the marks of a sexual assault are in this story. He tricks her. He deceives her. He abducts her. He takes her into his bedroom. And basically, he just looks down at her and tells her, I am going to rape you. And when Tamar realizes what is about to happen to her body, this is what she says. She says, no, my brother, don't force me. Such a thing should not be done. Don't do this wicked thing. And then she says this, what about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? Where could I get rid of my disgrace if you do this? She is verbalizing there the one question that every victim of sexual assault asks. What do I do now? What do I do once I've been violated in this way? How could I ever be clean or pure or holy or happy or healthy or normal again, ever? All right, now in the text, Tamar's question is a rhetorical one. She's not really looking for an answer from Amnon in this dialogue. What she's really saying is, if this thing happens to me, there is nowhere for me to get rid of my disgrace. She cries out this question to this man, but she is just expecting silence in return. She knows there's no answer because there is nowhere. Once this happens, Tamar is saying, it's over. But here's the good news of the Christian gospel. There is an answer to Tamar's question. A beautiful, bold, resounding, redemptive answer. Where can the victim of a sexual assault be rid of their disgrace? There's a place. It's at the cross of Christ. We could say it like this. King Jesus is not like King Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus' movement toward Esther was one-way violence. He came to her in self-interest, and he used her for his sinful purposes. When someone moves towards you like that, specifically when your sexuality has been assaulted like that, you feel dirty and ashamed and unclean and used and unlovable, like no one will ever step towards you again. But here's what happens in the gospel. Jesus comes to you in one-way grace. It's a very different approach. We call this incarnation. It's the Son of God stepping toward sinners in love, redemptive love. He is the anti-Ahasuerus. Jesus puts his self-interest aside. He puts it aside. And he steps at very, very great cost to himself into the mess of this life with its sexual violence. And he identifies with assault victims. He experiences their pain. Remember, everything that you went through, if you have undergone a sexual assault, everything that happened to you, all of the psychological and the emotional and the physical violence, the things that happened to your body and you were helpless to defend yourself, the demeaning language that may have been used towards you, the beatings and the wounds and the pain in your flesh, even the stripping of your clothes and the exposing of your private parts and the mocking gaze and cruelty, all of that shame, all of it. Read the Gospels. Read the Gospels. Jesus, innocent Jesus, endured all of that too. He knows what disgrace feels like. He knows what assault is. He knows what it is to be the victim of violence. And Jesus chose to endure that disgrace and endure that assault and take that violence on himself and all of that sin, that he might overcome it for us. Incarnation meant crucifixion. That's where Jesus' stepping toward us was headed. And crucifixion embodies the victory of Christ. Jesus' enduring of disgrace and assault was not just participatory so that he knows what you've gone through. It was redemptive so that he can redeem you through what you've gone through. In other words, Jesus overcame sin and its effects. In beautiful, poetic, divine, sovereign justice, King Ahasuerus was killed in his bedroom, in the place where he assaulted woman after woman after woman. I think that's God's grace to us to see that and to know that justice rolled on that man when he stood before God. He assaulted and he died, and the wrath of God was poured out on him. Jesus was assaulted and died, but Jesus rose from death. Jesus ascended to the Father. Jesus is a king who has overcome the curse that we endure. And Jesus lives so that he may offer you grace, cleansing, hope, redemption, life. And Jesus wants to do those things for you. He sent me here to tell you that today. Incarnation and atonement are not just theological realities that we study about. They are personal realities. They are yours. I'm giving them to you today. When Jesus stepped to the world to save, he was stepping toward you personally. You who have been sexually assaulted, you who feel like no one would ever come near me again. If they ever knew what I was forced to do, the things that have been done to me. Jesus did come to you. Jesus does come to you by his Spirit today. Jesus can rid you of your disgrace. He can do it. Your story does not end with assault. It doesn't. That assault does not define you. It does not get to have the last word on your identity. You were intended for more than shame and guilt and despair and pain and denial. Jesus died that you might live abundantly. Where can you get rid of your disgrace? There's an answer. In the grace, in the love, in the power, in the victory of the cross of Christ. So I invite you to begin to believe that gospel and to walk in that life with us, to experience the grace that Jesus intends for you. Would you grab that handle with us as well? This was not your fault, and Jesus can turn disgrace into grace and purity, cleanness and hope and life and joy.